I'm now going to cut the nut for the guitar. I'm using some brass bar for this, so first of all cut a little piece of brass off the bar. So I've worked out I need 5mm thick, so I'm going to scribe that and cut that off with a hacksaw. Until we get a nice square line. I'm just going to clean the cut edge up and make sure it's square to the sides of the nut. So now we can just cut the nut to the width of the fretboard. So once the nut's to about the right dimension, just test fit it in the slot on the fretboard to make sure it's to the right size. It'll probably be a bit tight the first time, so then take it back to the abrasive and just file or sand a little bit more off until it's a perfect fit. The first marks I'm going to put on the nut are the positions of the strings from the edges of the nut, which are typically about 1/8 of an inch, 3–3.5mm, and then we're going to use this spacing rule to mark the asymmetric string spacing. This asymmetric string guide has conveniently got a set of markings that allow you to mark up every different nut width that you're likely to come across. Because bass strings are physically wider than treble strings, if the centres of the strings are the same distance apart, then physically the edges of the strings would be closer on the bass side than the treble side. So for that reason, you have the strings slightly wider apart on the bass side, or the centres are wider apart, so the actual physical gaps between the strings are about the same. So I'm then going to fit this to the guitar and draw a profile on the edge of the nut following the fretboard surface. Okay, that's giving me a scribe, so now I can pop this out. Okay, and that gives me a line to roughly to work to. To cut the nut slots, I'm going to use special nut files. These have got a rounded edge to the bottom, and the width I'm using are one size up from the gauge of the strings. I'm just going to put some Pro Cut lubricant on the file. That stops it sticking while we cut the nut. I'm going to cut all the slots first with the smallest file so that we accurately get the centre position of each slot, and then just work through the bigger files as we work up towards the bass string. So the top one, we're a little bit high. So a little bit more off that, and it's seated into the bottom of the slot. The next one is seated in the bottom of the slot and is about right. Look onto the next, right there. The next one is a little bit high, but not quite seated in the slot, so we've got to widen that slot a bit. This one's seated in the slot and is a little bit high, but it's fairly close. That's seated again, but still a little bit high, as is that one. But the marks I've set, we haven't quite reached, so the marks seem to be right. Just a little bit more work there. The vise I'm using here has got tapered jaws, so it means when you put the nut in the jaws of the vise, you've got very good access to the nut. So the slots are now to the right depth, so we're just going to take it off, shape it, polish it, and gold plate it. So I've filed it just so that the holes are deep enough to take the string, with the string sitting slightly proud of the top. The reason I'm so keen on gold plating is it's not that I'm being flash, it's just that it just stops metals oxidising and they retain their nice shiny appearance for the lifetime of the guitar. And the nice thing with plating is you don't have to let it dry or set. Once it's plated, it's plated. So that's plated, ready to set up.